I thought that no one would notice if I was gone. I had a really unusual childhood. I traveled with my family in an RV for 5 years around the US. We moved every few weeks, and I really didn't have any relationship with anyone outside my family, like teachers or friends, and I felt like pretty much the most isolated person on earth. But my story doesn't end there. This is my story of how Jesus brought hope and healing to my journey. My name is Brennen, and this is my true story. So I grew up in Southern California with two awesome parents and a sister who is 6 years younger than me. And really, I had a really great childhood. I had a lot of happy memories. I had some awesome time with friends growing up. But my spiritual journey, how I started out becoming a Christian, started with my mom, because my mom was an atheist and my dad was an agnostic. And one day she had this crazy, miraculous dream where she learned about the realities of heaven and hell. And she became a Christian like overnight. And she was one of those like Bible, like tell everybody about the faith kind of Christians. And so I really adopted that mentality. I became a Christian at a pretty young age. I was following that. But I had kind of two sides of me growing up. On the one side, I was, caring, and I loved to help people and I loved to have fun. And then the other side of me was, quite frankly, really rebellious, really disrespectful. I kind of just wanted to do my own thing. And so as a kid, I got into a lot of trouble. I was in detention at a study hall for every single day of second grade. So as a little 8-year-old, I was kind of a terror. But I started to change around 9 years old. That's when I got baptized. I started to give my life to Christ because I recognized that I didn't like the side of me that was hurting people. I didn't like the side of me that was selfish. And I really wanted out of that. So that's really how my story began. That's how I became a Christian. So early on, I had a pretty good relationship with God for a kid. I remember running into my room and trying to listen for God's voice. And I actually heard something. God spoke to me. He said, "You can trust me wherever you go." And that was going to become kind of an anchor for some of my faith for most of the rest of my life. But something different really happened around 2010. That's when my family bought an RV. We kind of dropped everything that was going on. The real estate crash had just happened. So my parents felt like God was calling us to go around the country and tell people about Jesus. And so it was a really interesting lifestyle. It was amazing in some ways because we got to go to state parks. We got to go to national parks. We got to see history all around us on the East Coast and the South. And I was homeschooled during this time. And so I was like learning about the Oregon Trail and all this stuff. And now I look out my window and literally see it. So it was a really fun time where I got to experience a lot of culture. I got to experience a lot of just seeing the world and what that was like. And that lasted for 5 years. That was from when I was 10 years old to when I was 15 years old. I also was really blessed by my family. My mom was just a super strong Christian. She would teach us Bible study. When we were homeschooled, she taught us a lot about how to think, how to be a critical thinker, and how to find the truth, right? And she really, you could see that she believed it. She wasn't just talking about it, but she actually lived it out. My dad as well was doing that. He had his own faith in God. Only about a year after my mom, he came to faith. And then from that point, he would teach us, do like these morning Bible studies. And so I really had solid parents that loved God, and our family unit was really, really strong. But at the same time, things were not going as well for me in the community area, right? Because if you imagine you're moving every few weeks for 5 years from the ages of 10 to 15, you end up losing a lot in terms of like community. So no friends, no real like teachers, nothing that I had to relate to on a consistent basis. We got to visit a ton of churches. So like we went to 150 churches during our time out there, but it was something where all of my friends that I had back in California, again, we're all 10 years old. And so they're not necessarily the best at keeping up with me. I see them maybe once a year. And it started to create this kind of feeling in me, and it was really an insecurity, and it really the feeling of if I wasn't here, how many people would notice that I was gone? How many people would truly care about me? Because for me, when I would come back to California, it seemed like, man, I was best friends with these people, and I was super close, but I felt like from their perspective, they didn't feel that way towards me. I was like a random kid that was coming along, and then that they got to play with for a little while, and then I left again. And so it really told me, like, you're alone. People don't care about you. People don't notice if you're gone. And that really created a deep, I guess, fear in me of being alone, being lonely. And that only was stoked the more years we were out on the road. And so around this time, this was 2015, we came off the road. And the reason was there was a few different things going on. My parents' marriage was having a hard time. And my mom also was experiencing some mental illness issues. She had undiagnosed bipolar disorder, which, for those of you that don't know, that it really messes with your sense of reality, and it affects, your beliefs about the world. So she would sometimes get really strange theories that would be very unsettling, and that would mess with our family and our belief system and that kind of thing. At the same time, my dad was struggling with his own stuff. And so this kind of perfect storm happened, and a lot of our family fell apart for a time. We were separated for a while. Hard things were happening. And during this time, I was thinking a lot about God and about faith, because I'd always been a Christian. I'd always wanted to please God. But now life kind of sucks. Like, I don't have friends that I want. My mom has mental illness, and I had a real hard time with that, because how could a good God allow somebody to get something that takes their mind from them? I couldn't get past that. How can a good God allow that? And so I started making compromises. I started watching pornography. I was heavily addicted to video games, to the point where that's like all I would do every single day. And this is just starting out high school for a timeline. We had moved back to California at this time, but I still didn't have a ton of community. And I just had this anger against God. I just had this, I felt like God was alive, he was real, but he wasn't doing anything for me. He didn't make my life better. So why should I try to serve him? But the deeper I got into these addictions, I realized they were capable of hurting a lot of people. And I really didn't want that. So I tried to get off pornography. I tried to get out of these things, only to realize I really couldn't. I tried as hard as I could, and every time I would try, I would just fall right back. But I remembered that when I was a wild kid before, God had changed me. And that kind of lingered in my mind, because it was like, I know he can help me with this. But he was, again, the person I did not want to talk to. He was the person I was mad at. And I had to learn to set aside that anger and say, okay, I don't have answers for why you allowed these things to happen in my life, but I need your help right now, because I don't want to be this person I'm becoming. And I'm so glad I made that decision, because God, over the next few years, helped me completely get out of both of those addictions, to get clean from that. But that was just the first part of the story. My story gets way better from there, because God started bringing me friends. He started bringing me community. There's several groups of people that he brought, and it filled me up so much. These were people that loved God. These were people that loved me and wanted to pour into my life. And they did notice if I was gone at a group or something like that. And it felt so refreshing to have real community, real family among a community of believers. And so God began restoring that as I was, leaving high school and starting to grow up. And it was just an amazing experience. And I started to realize something too. All those years that I had spent not really experiencing community had given me such an empathy for other lonely people that I just naturally gravitated towards the other people that were experiencing loneliness, that felt alone. And so I was actually able to help them and start communities and bring those people into my group. And I started realizing that a lot of the things that I had felt as suffering, God was redeeming and changing them around. And it didn't stop with just that, because my mom ended up getting healed from a lot of her mental illness. She ended up finding a medication that worked, that really helped her with her bipolar. And she slowly started becoming restored to the kind of rational and loving and amazing person that I knew her as. And today she's that person again. And so I really saw God heal not only me and my loneliness, but also my mom and my family. He did an awesome work in my parents' marriage. And today our family is healed. We love each other. We're closer than ever. And it's just testament to the Lord's power to redeem and to change lives. And it hasn't really just stopped with our personal healing, but we've had friends now that we've been able to invite over to our house and help. We have Bible studies in our living room. And it's just so cool to see the same things that God healed us from, now he's using us to heal other people. And it's beautiful to see God work in that way. So it's been an amazing journey. Now, a few years after that, God called me to ministry. Now I get a chance to share all kinds of stories with people through videos, and that's my main ministry. But I think honestly, the biggest thing from my story that I can tell you is, people ask, why would you serve a God that allowed all this stuff? Like, don't you have a problem with that suffering? And I did for a long time. I think when God creates a free will world, a world we can make choices that actually matter, things are going to happen, right? There's going to be consequences to that, whether it's good or bad. And God doesn't intervene in many of those scenarios. I don't think he forced me to go through a lot of those things, but he was there for me when it was time to answer those prayers. He was there for me when it was time to get me out of those situations. And he used what happened in my life that was really hard, that was suffering, and he turned it to good. And there's people today that might not have been alive if I hadn't gone through those difficult things, learned how to have strength, learned how to have a relationship with God, and then help them. And so it's really just been a full, 180 in my viewpoint, knowing that God is ready to turn those difficult things into good. And not just a little bit of good, but good that goes far beyond the bad that happened. Like, now I've created Bible studies and communities and brought people together. All of that out of some of the loneliness that I had felt in the past. It informed my empathy. It informed who I am today. But honestly, I wouldn't have the relationship with God that I have today unless I had gone through that. And it is so worth it to have that relationship. If you ask me to describe my relationship with God, it's not like I'm just like reading the Bible and Jesus is some historical figure that was there in the past that I esteem. That's like more religion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like Jesus has helped me through some of my worst moments when I'm just bawling my eyes out and I need someone to comfort me. I can actually hear his voice. The Bible talks about that God sends the Holy Spirit to teach us all things and bring to remembrance what Jesus taught us. He actually speaks to us. He's spoken to me at the critical times in my life when I have needed it, all the way from when I was a kid to today and doing things in ministry. He's my best friend. He's been with me this whole journey, the longest friend I've had. And I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't gone through some of those things. So I would just say for any of you that want a relationship with God like that are chasing that, there's an emptiness. I feel alone. I don't feel loved. I feel like I would just disappear. If I disappeared, no one would notice or care about me. There is somebody who does. And there's probably a lot of people that do. But Jesus is definitely one of the biggest ones. He loves you. He's a plan for you. He cares about you. And none of my prayers that I prayed for community went unanswered. In time, he brought those people into my life. So I would just encourage you, trust him, talk to God, and listen for his voice, because he wants to have a relationship with you, and you will never feel alone if you have that in your life. So I just want to encourage you with that. And secondly, if you're like where I was in a hard place where you don't really have community, there's some really good places to find it. I know if you're a young adult, there's college campus ministries like Crew. There's churches that have groups for this sort of thing. See if you can get into those and find some friends there. You might have to make some lifestyle changes. Maybe your work or something is keeping you from that kind of thing. Maybe think about making those changes, because it really is important to get into community where you're being filled up and people are helping you and supporting you. For somebody who's going through pornography addiction or other kinds of addiction like that, I think my advice to you would be, why do you want out of that if you do? I know for me, it was, I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want to let this control me. And that ultimately is what brought me back to God, is because I cared enough about that to get out of it. And so really think about why you want to get free from that. And then let God back into that area of your life. For me, there was a block up to God. There's a block because I had anger against him. And I had to remove that block. And once I did, he helped me get back to a place where I'm out of that control and out of the shame and out of the guilt that comes with that. So I would just encourage you, if you're struggling with that, ask God to help. Ask him to help you, give you motivation to change. And then there's a lot of awesome resources. There's accountability groups. There's apps like Covenant Eyes that can help you monitor your internet usage and things like that. So explore some of the resources that are out there. But it starts with motivation. Do you want this enough? Do you want to be out of this more than you just want to kind of drown out the things that are happening in life with this addiction? So I encourage you, ask God for help, make a change. And if anybody has any questions that you want to ask me, you're going to see my contact information in the description of the video. So just let me know about that, because I love to talk, and just if you have anything that's on your heart that I can help with, yeah, by all means. I'm gonna pray us out and end this, but just join me in prayer. Lord, I just want to lift up the people that are watching right now, especially the people that are feeling alone or who don't feel like the world would notice if they're gone. Lord, give them peace, give them that surety that you are in their life, that you are working, that you're speaking life over them, that you're fighting on their behalf to bring them back from the darkness, Lord. That people do see them as somebody who's valuable, Lord. You've put people around us that can help us, that do see value in us. Lord, and I pray that they know how valuable they are to you. Lord, I just pray that they would receive your peace, that they would understand what it means to have a relationship with you, that they wouldn't give up until they hear your voice, till they find you, till they find their best friend in you, Lord. And I pray that you would also surround them with the community that they need to grow, the community that they need to get help, to get support, so that they can live a better life, Lord. I pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to my testimony. At True Witness, we're collecting many testimonies of radical change in people's lives. If you want to be a part of what we're doing, make sure you subscribe, that you tell some friends about us. Send in a testimony. If you know of any people with stories, let us know about them. And you can also support us monthly in the link below. And that helps us get going and get more stories out to more people. So excited to be on this journey with you guys.